a little bit of high quality blue cheese dressing on the side, and I would dip the broccoli in the high quality blue cheese.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
Good.
That sounds amazing.
Also, perfect egg cooking. I've nailed it a few times where you have like the egg is jiggly and the yolk is like purely liquid, but it's fully cooked whites. So there's like a white film over the yolk, and it's just like
perfectly cooked. Alrighty, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to East of Anime, the podcast. We've got Moon. I'm one of your hosts. Right over here on the right is Hal in 3D. She's one of your other hosts, and just below me is Bad Strategy. He's your other host. Hi. Hey, how you guys doing today? Hi, Hal. How you doing today?
I am.
Oh, I'm doing it. I'm taking it easy.
Take it easy.
Yep. Oh, I'm doing it. Lemon squeezy. Easy peasy. I don't know. Whatever it is. Yep. Oh, I'm doing it. Lemon squeezy. Easy peasy.
I gotta make
I'm good.
Are you good?
So good.
I gotta make sure.
Terrible.
So good, so good.
Sorry, I was just trying to make sure the sound is working. I feel like I'm a little quiet. Do I sound a little quiet to you guys?
You sound fine to me.
Well, that's fair. You guys are on the mics though.
Yeah, you were a little quiet.
Yeah, I have that problem.
Not super quiet, but yeah, I can hear it. I sound a little hot. You sound a little quiet and I sound a little hot.
Well, I guess it's a combination that's going to work. Anyways, hey, so today we're going to be talking about the Rising of the Shield Hero. As per usual, we're just watching the first 12 episodes, although I believe Helen watched the whole show twice. I think something like that. Me and Bad just watched the first 12 episodes, and we're going to talk about the first 12 episodes and what the show is so far. Have a whole bunch of different aspects of the show we're going to talk about. But Helen, we'll just go ahead and get your general opinion. What do you think of Rising of the Shield Hero?
I actually really enjoy this show for several reasons. I think they did a very good job carving it out, and it reminds me of a mix between modern anime and also it has that classic touch, which is so beautiful. So I really liked that. Not even because of the chocobo.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
But yeah.
Bad, what do you think?
I like this show. I feel like the messaging is interesting, even though I disagree with some amount of it. Okay. And I feel like it is art in that the writer is exploring things they're feeling around in territory they don't really understand in their writing of the show.
Right.
I disagree.
Okay, and to clarify that, because I want to make sure that I think people understand what you mean by that.
So there's a definition of art that I rather like, which is that art is the exploration of the unknown. So to the extent that in your writing you are exploring concepts rather than trying to present an argument, you are producing art.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, art's about trying to, well, because if you're trying to figure something out.
Yeah, if you already know what message you're trying to convey and you're writing just to convey the message, then it's propaganda. And so,
and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that, and I'll tell you why. My point about it is, I understand where you're coming from, where it's propaganda. You've been on this train for a little while, and you've been thinking a lot about it. And I think it's a really interesting concept to explore. But I also feel like the art of exploration can also be when you have a specific goal in mind. So us as artists, us as actors, we have to be specific with what we're doing. We have to know what we're doing so that when things hit us, then it's the unknown. Then we know all of the things that make us this actor, this whatever we choose to be, like whatever character we're portraying. And then whenever it hits us, we have to take what's getting thrown at us and still have all of this stuff and be able to react. So from an acting standpoint, I really like how the writer did this, not because I don't feel like it was propaganda, because I feel like
I agree.
it was natural.
I agree. I don't think the shield hero is propaganda at all. I think
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I misunderstood that.
So
Sorry.
no. I was because I've definitely there may be no. I think the shield hero is mostly art. I think the writer is mostly exploring things they don't really fully comprehend, and they're trying to understand them. And so I quite like the shield hero for that, and I think that's part of what makes it. I think the shield hero is well above average for anime, and I think that's really what makes it that way.
I see what you're saying. But what do you mean by when you say propaganda? Like,
so.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so. Well, how would you define the difference between what defines propaganda? Because I would say propaganda is defined by you know what message you want to convey beforehand, and you're writing specifically to convey that message, or you're creating something specifically to convey the message.
So for me, propaganda would be like that message, but not giving any room for it to grow outside of itself.
Okay, yeah. So I think you're hitting on the same thing, because you're effectively saying it's propaganda when there's no room for the unknown, when there's no room for exploration.
Yeah,
if there's not the potential
they're repetitive. Like, because like when you do a script or you score a script or anything like that, if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, you're doing it the same way, and you're just like, no, I want it this way. Like when you're writing a script, you're not supposed to write in exactly how their body is supposed to move, because that's not fair, that's not right, and that's not exploring what the play.
Oh yeah, you're also that's also interesting, because that's like specifically from your approach, that's giving the actor room to embody the role and to change it up and to fit it. And that's really interesting. I think we're on the same page in regards to propaganda.
So what else? I love the intro. The intro was sick.
The intro is good. I like.
I wish we could play it right now.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll talk about the intro. We'll go over some of the general points of the show. So the intro, I thought was fun. I enjoyed it. I liked the song. It's a good song. It's a really decent intro. Has really good animation in the intro. And I think throughout the show, the intro, it's funny because the intro really, really, really reminds me of the My Hero Season 2 intro song, mixed with like Linkin Park.
Well, it's got the
it has that like it really reminds me of the My Hero Season 2 intro.
I like to be careful not to compare, because I don't like to put it in a shoe.
That's fair. I wear shoes every day, so I don't mind.
Well, I mean, I feel like sometimes you can pigeonhole stuff if you.
That's fair. And
it's distinctly possible.
That being said, the My Hero intros are pretty much all really good. So if you're gonna get pigeonholed into, being like some other intro, I don't think it's a bad thing to be like the My Hero intro. But like the song sounds a lot like the My Hero Season 2 intro mixed with like Linkin Park.
I get the Linkin Park,
really good.
Sure.
It's a really good sound. I enjoyed it. As far as the intro goes. But the animation, and we'll talk real quick about animation. Did you have any other thoughts though on the intro?
Just that
Or no, you can.
Go ahead, Helen.
I just.
So I have to say, the reason why I said it would be good for us maybe to do the other 12 at some other point is because the second intro from the first one, it's very like upbeat, action-y. And then when you hit the second, they're still actually using parts of the first song, but they cut it with this like darkness. So everything is a shade of gray. And so you really feel the weight of it come down on you. And then like halfway through the intro, all the color comes back. And then it's like power. Like it's cool. It's really a neat juxtaposition. I can't even, but like I think that the way they started the anime, there's something I really enjoy about when somebody does an intro, when they don't use all the scenes from the show, they're just random scenes that weren't in the show. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And I also appreciate when the music hits with the action. So the and then it's like, and like the body movement, and then like when it snaps to a new scene. I enjoy those. I feel like those are more well done and they fit the music, and I don't feel like all animes do this, and that really irritates me when I see an anime that's like not to the music at all, but here's our intro music and here's a video, and I'm like, okay,
made an intro and added music afterwards.
And didn't fit it. They just, you know. So.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and that's those are always interesting artistic choices to see what they do with the intro. I always, the intros are one of my favorite parts of anime because there's such an interesting diversity, and there's just a lot of really good stuff out there.
It's also a really
sucker for a good intro. If you have good,
it's a really good place for artistic expression.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I agree. I think that's why I like AMVs so much, is because intros are very much like the AMV of the show.
Right. But okay, so what is the Shield Rising as a Shield Hero about? Hey, Ben, do you want to sum it up?
Okay, so there's a dude, and he has, I would say the first part of the show is not really. It's really meant there to be like, put yourself in the protagonist's shoes, rather than being a part of the story, because it's like he's a shut-in NEET, except he's better than other NEETs, right? So he's kind of like you but cooler, and then he helped his brother, and he like with something it's mentioned, so he's also like morally better than you too, so that's kind of nice.
Jeez.
And then he opens a book and he gets pulled into a video game world, effectively, as you do. And then he has a quick arc where he is accused of being a rapist by corrupt people, and then he does a character flip from being a good, morally upstanding person to being like, I am arrogant and I can't trust anyone, even though I still want to be a good person, so I'm going to be an asshole now. And then it's about him. It's about a character with trust issues in a place with the corrupt authority figures, trying to understand how to exist in the world, despite the fact that the people you have to be an asshole not to get hurt, and he doesn't really want to be an asshole, and also he can't trust people, but he needs people because he's a support character.
Right.
So this show is about somebody who gets isekai'd, who is a NEET, and basically had an open heart. And by the end of it, by the mid-season, nothing's going on. Nothing is coming together. He's had to fight for what he wants. And the only person he really started to trust was Talia, and even that was hard. And so, and then she even gets her slave crest back because she trusts him that much. The whole brainwashing fucking shield thing, whatever, doesn't even exist.
Yeah, that's fair. So okay, so yeah, that's fair. And if we get to a do it a little bit more technical way, yeah. There's a kid and he's transported to another dimension that is.
Yep. He's not a kid.
Fantasy. Well, yeah. Okay. What is he, like 18 or no? He's
20.
21. Is he 20?
21. Okay, 21 or 20.
I think he was 20 because I think the other guy was 21. And he's transported from Japan, but also he's transported from Japan with 4 other guys from various places, except they're all from an alternate dimension of Japan. Japanese history is slightly different. As a weird touch, I thought that was kind of fun.
it's interesting. I like it, but I also don't think it might. I think it might not at all be tied into the story.
Yeah, I don't think it
might
matters.
be
I
like
don't think it
that.
matters. I
Have
just think
you?
it's fun.
No, you haven't seen the rest of the series, or you haven't, right?
I don't know. I think I mean I watched it way back, but I don't remember it so super well.
Okay.
So he gets transported to this other world, and with these 4 other kids, and when I say kids, I mean between the ages of 18 and 21, I believe. And they are given, or they have these mythical weapons.
I think one's like 16.
One of them 16. Yeah, that's fair. Oh yeah, I think a couple of them in high school. There's a sword and a spear and a bow and a shield, and so our main character is the shield hero. So the other 3 heroes, now this is right off the bat, are kind of assholes. And he just like really wants to help. And then he goes to the king in the courtroom, and he gets accused of abuse, and he's like ostracized, and they take all of his stuff, and he has to go out and try to defeat these waves, quote unquote, that are like big groups of bad guys, big waves of bad guys, monsters and whatnot that come to go destroy the world. And so him and the other 3 heroes have to train until they're, they can defeat the waves. But he's got to do it on his own because they decided they don't like him.
So I have a question. Who's the bad guy?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I would say that
the bad guy.
The most significant the antagonist of the story is something like the figure of the tyrannical father.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the corruption of the masculine ideal is the villain.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That is
Alan,
very fair.
Who do you think the bad guy is?
Who do you think the bad guy is?
So, this is what's fun.
Mm-hmm.
The king is actually being manipulated by the church.
Mm-hmm.
So, he thinks that, and there's several references in the first 12 episodes where he said the shield hero did something. He doesn't say exactly what, but the shield hero destroyed my family, or the family I had before. And there's like some references to that. We don't actually get to know before the end of the season. So there's something to that. But he's being manipulated by the church. He's being manipulated by mine. He's being manipulated like left and right. And he already has a grudge against him. So I don't feel like the king is actually the real antagonist here. I think he causes issues, but he's not the one behind all of this. Mm-hmm. And we know from the first episode, mine is like garbage because she totally steals his money, says that she was raped by him. She is a shit for the first 12 episodes. Like, she is bad.
She's a bad guy.
And she totally tries to kill Melty, which is so fucked. I think that's like the worst thing ever.
Which is the young princess?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just saw it. That was crappy. That was not cool.
So,
also, if you're going to try to assassinate someone and frame someone else for it, and you're going to do it right in front of the person you're framing, just do it right away and don't wait for the target to walk away from you and stand next to the person that you're trying to frame.
Especially
so that
you have to. You're trying to frame is
worst assassin. Terrible.
The person you're trying to frame has a specialty of protection magic. So.
Yes.
Well, the other problem with that too is the spear hero is so dense. He's so dense. Every time somebody says something, he's like, "Oh, I believe you. It's them. That you're wrong. You're bad spear, or you're bad shield hero. Bad."
It's funny. It's funny because this is I think this is a thing that happens a lot is attempts to when writers depict the hero in a negative light, especially in isekai, they tend to make the hero very dense. And I think that's because villains... Sorry.
Wait, so you're talking about the spear hero dense, not the shield hero.
Well, yes, the spear hero is dense, but I think he, when writers in isekai try to depict the hero in a negative light, like they do with the spear hero, they tend to make them like dense, and I think part of that is because villains tend to be very clever, right? It's like in a classic heroic tale, the hero isn't the super clever one. The villain is the super clever one. And then the villain is like arrogant because they're so clever, bitter and resentful because they were wronged, and all these things. But the hero, it's not actually heroic to be clever, so the hero doesn't end up being clever in a lot of stories. And so I think that that's it's interesting. I think it's like people put some sort of moral value on intelligence, and then when they want to depict poorly the hero, they depict the hero as stupid because intelligence isn't actually a virtue.
See, and that's why I like this show, because it plays around with that. I feel like the spear hero is the dense one, but the bow hero and the sword hero, they are not as dense. They're still going along with things, but they question it more. And then you have the shield hero who's dealing with all this retaliation, has to make his own money, has to make his own way. And then they're like, well, how'd you learn all that? You must be cheating. You must be doing something. You're the devil of the sword, or devil of the shield. And it's like, no, he's not.
Well, it's interesting because he's like the shield hero is almost like he would be the villain in another story, but he's struggling against that, right? That's with he has the rage shield, and it's very fitting that the rage shield like engulfs him in a flame because flames consume things, and he's the thing that's burning, and so he's fighting with like, oh, I can't give into my rage because I'll hurt the people around me. And he's the very clever character who was wronged and who was bitter and who is fighting his own resentment and who has every reason in the world to be bitter and resentful and hateful towards everyone else. So like in a classic story, he would be the villain. So I like seeing his struggle.
I like the way they did that, in the sense that if they don't all come together, then they're not going to be able to defeat all the waves. And so the church is like, well, then you have to die. But the church is saying that because they want to control the heroes, not because they care about, like, it has nothing to do with morality. The church is bad. Like, church is bad. And so I find that really interesting, how they tie that all in, and how we see how the church has corrupted everyone, and how the heroes were actually meant to be in different parts of the world, and they're only helping this one country. And so everywhere else is getting brutally slaughtered, and we just don't even... I just find that really captivating.
It's interesting because it's like, there's a major, I think it's an essential theme to the story, the corruption of authority, and with the church, it's specifically like moral authority with the church. And there's an interesting episode. So okay, he goes into a town and it's overrun by plants, and he finds out that the spear hero had come through, and the spear hero found a magical seed right next to a warning that said, don't use this, it will eat everything. And either the spear hero was too stupid to be able to read it, or he just ignored the warning, but he took the seed and he planted it anyways, and like tried to solve the food problems for the villagers using a cheat, because he's like, instead of working hard to farm, let's just like plant a magical seed and solve everything. And so clearly the spear hero is in the wrong for trying to get out of like using the appropriate solution and to just use a cheat method. And then the shield hero comes in and he kills all the plants, and he manipulates the seed to make new magical seeds and plant them to feed the villagers. And what's strange about that episode is that the shield hero does exactly what the spear hero did, in the same way that the spear hero did it. He's guilty of exactly the same moral failing. But then the moral of the episode is that the villagers were in the wrong, and they were in the wrong because they blindly trusted an authority figure. And so it's
Okay.
yeah, it's like the writer's focus is, it's in a weird place because the writer is very concerned with the corruption of authority. And there's this background thing where the shield hero is actually doing the same thing as the other heroes for slightly different reasons, but it works when he does it.
So he has to clean up all of the heroes' messes.
Yeah.
Every time. It's like he got pushed out, and then he comes to these places and he's like, well, fine, but you're going to pay me for it. They're like, here's money. He's like, nah, I want this instead. So in a way, it kind of shows how he's better. And also, he's cleaning up the messes. And with the seed and everything, he does manipulate it so that it will work for the villagers. But the villagers weren't necessarily in the wrong because they were always taught to believe that the heroes were there to help. And so they believed when the hero said, oh, this seed, here you go, this will help everybody. And they were like, oh, after the fact, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should question authority. And so I really liked the messaging in that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the thing Bad was getting at is that the way that the problem was solved was the exact same. It was through the exact same way that the problem was started.
Yeah,
like the shield hero did do exactly the same thing.
So the issue is the villagers were hungry, and they didn't have enough food. And the way they get food is through farming and working hard. And the spear hero came in and went like, oh, here's an easy cheat so that we don't have to do hard work. This will solve the problem. And then the shield hero came in and it removed the immediate danger and said, okay, here's an easy cheat that saves you from having to work hard, solves the problem. He kind of does the same
I don't
thing.
feel like he's cheating in that way because he actually found out
using
what
a magical
the seed does.
seed.
Well,
he found out what the seed does, and they still have to farm. They still have to work hard. It's just that they have some means of a faster way. Think smarter, not harder.
Well, I mean, I think that's also the elevation of intelligence as a virtue. I think that's also a part of it, but which is a bad way of looking at things, because intelligence is a terrible virtue because you can't actually
virtue is something you should
act it out. You can't actually you don't have control over intelligence, so you cannot pursue intelligence to better yourself. And so as a virtue, it's a kind of wrong-headed because you can't move towards it. And a virtue is ideally something you can advance towards.
So just Gollum in the chat was just saying that the shield here did do something extra. He did go through and manipulate the seed with his shield and did some work, and it was a little bit of a time lapse. So I guess you don't know exactly how much time he spent doing that.
Yeah, it's a little strange because he has a magical power that he can make anything. His magical power is he can make things he touches better by touching them.
Oh yeah, with medicine and stuff like that. Yeah, that was interesting. So I guess.
I think the more interesting part about that is that all of the heroes have a different way to access skills, and they all fight about it because they all don't realize that they all can get access. And so when we find that out, I think that's a really crucial point of this show.
Mm-hmm. They access their skills in a different way.
Oh, I don't think
that they can't. Oh shoot, sorry.
What can't they do?
So in, I guess, later episodes, we find out that they're all using different abilities and they all don't realize it, but all of the abilities are accessible to every hero, and they fight about it and don't realize until Naofumi does. And even then, Naofumi tries to tell them and they're idiots and they won't listen. But he's like, oh shit, I can activate their skills. So, oh shit, we all have access to this. So he tries to tell them to bring them together, and they are still dumb. So
can everybody do the healing thing?
Yeah.
That's a very useful skill. I wish I had that.
That's a pretty useful skill. Okay, we're halfway through, and we haven't talked about trust issues. I feel like we failed. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead. Trust
ahead, Jake.
issues.
This is hardcore, man. So
Bad,
okay. So
big.
this is the thing that I thought was it is interesting, and it's an interesting way that this played out within the show. And I don't know exactly what happens later on, but first half of the show. So the Shield hero is banished, and he's afraid that everybody's going to betray him because he just got betrayed a bunch of times. That makes sense. And so he goes out and he buys a slave to make the person that's going to fight for him, and the slave has a magical slave brand thing that makes it so she cannot disobey him.
Crest.
Crest.
I think she will die if she manages to resist the horrible torment and
she'll
pain.
die or something like that. So, has some trust issues there. Later on, gets dueled by the spear hero, and basically they force him to free his slave, or they force her free, but she doesn't want to because she wants to stay. Like, she doesn't care. She just wants to help him. And after she's like, oh yeah, she stays with him anyway. But then she goes and she re-gets the slave brand, which crest, whatever, which I thought was like, oh, okay, that's weird. And then they find he gets an egg that hatches into a magic chocobo, which turns into a little 8-year-old girl who with little angel wings, and she joins them as a companion, and they put a slave crest on her.
No, well, she had it, didn't she? Oh yeah,
No,
they put it on her. I remember.
They call it they say it's taming with her because she's an animal, but it's the same color, it's the same person administering it, and it's so
I remember that now.
seems like a slave crest.
It was one of those things where it was like, oh no, don't enslave another little girl. That's terrible. You're being a bad person, even if it's for a good reason. So the main character has some very serious trust issues, even though he.
So why do you think Raftalia got the crest put back on her? I'm curious as to digging into that with you.
So that's interesting. I don't know. I think it would. I think as the character wants to get the slave crest put back on her. You can speculate what the character wants. You can say, well, she wants to prove that she just wants to stay with him. I honestly think it would be, it's a more powerful relationship when someone isn't magically and legally bonded to the person. So she didn't keep the slave crest, and she just stayed with him anyways. I think that's great. That's that's interesting.
So when we're talking about Naofumi versus Raftalia in that sense, why do you think that? What was the purpose of getting it? Yes, you can speculate, but there really was a definitive purpose as to why she did it.
Well, I don't
know if I'd say that.
When we talk about the Rage Shield, the triangular position of the Rage Shield in this is pivotal. So go ahead.
So, Naofumi threw a tantrum. I think that's.
I agree with that. Yes.
That's at what age do children stop acting like that?
Never.
Naofumi's a very naive character, and so he throws a crazy tantrum when she loses her slave crest, and he's like, "You're gonna abandon me, and you're gonna leave me, and it's gonna be terrible." And she's the thing. I suppose what you're getting at is that she is the element that is keeping him back from succumbing to his rage and his hatred and his resentment and his bitterness, and keeping that from burning up and consuming him and destroying the people around him. And so she kind of she gets the slave crest to be like, I trust you and like you so much that I am going to make it impossible for me to betray you so that you can understand how much I trust you, which is a meaningful gesture. It's like what you do when you get married, right? You're like, right. I am you own me and I own you, except it's one way, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. I like that because I like the way you said that, because it is a gesture to show that she's trustworthy for him. And he can trust her. And I think that's something he didn't have in this world at all, and he finally had something.
It's really interesting because he's a super naive character.
Oh yeah.
And when he gets out of being hurt, the only people he can trust to bring with him are literal children. Characters that are more naive than he is, because I think that if they were adults, if they were mature characters, he wouldn't be able to trust them, and that's something that's weird. Something that's weird that happens. Raftalia is like 8 when he buys her, and 15 days later she's 18,
Yeah.
and like then Philo has a similar thing where Philo's an egg, and then 15 days later Philo is like 8-year-old Chocobo.
And to a degree, they point that out in being in his party causes that, and so they explain some of that later on. I don't know where. I think before you guys get there, and so that was interesting that she grew up. But they also did explain that Raftalia, hers was experience based, so her whole species levels up and they grow older when they're leveling up.
So if you have like an Oedipal mother, you will literally stay a physical child forever.
They never explain that, but they do show it. I'm not sure where you guys cut off, but they do show that she gets in contact with somebody that was her age, and she's this adult and they're still children. So there is that going on.
If she just like gets really, really good at sewing or something and she levels up a bunch, she's going to be like an old lady.
I guess. I don't know.
That is a horrible incentive to improve yourself. If I become better, I'm just going to be old.
Okay, so
that's the confusing part I don't get, because she's continuing to level up, but she doesn't age more than what she is like as the adult.
I suppose it's probably that aging is a separate process, and like the leveling up is the development towards the peak fitness, but you will naturally age. So if you never leveled up, you would be like an old man child, like, oh, my back.
This is Isakai's anime science. This is how it
works. Right?
Solid.
Okay, so let's jump to this then. Hallen, you first. What's your biggest critique of this show? What do you think your biggest critique of the show is?
So I had a really hard time with this, and I thought about this while I was watching it, because there was so much I found that was so gritty and amazing, and when you watch it the second time through, I don't know.
You said you thought about it, though.
Huh?
You said you thought about it.
I did. I was thinking about it, but every time I thought about it, I was like, dang it, I like that. Because your goal is to call BS on stuff, right?
Right.
And so I couldn't BS the dub. I couldn't BS the artwork. I couldn't BS. I actually really enjoyed the messaging. I felt like what was happening in the underbelly that we didn't see until later was so well done. I would say, now I remember, the last 3 episodes of the show, which you guys didn't see, went too fast. It didn't make sense because they were rushing it, but you guys aren't there yet. But they did rush the ending where it was like, okay, we're jumping around too much and you're not explaining this, you're not explaining that. So I would say that the last 3 episodes were way too rushed and didn't make sense. But you would.
Okay. That's fair. That happens. That's a pretty common one. Rush for the last couple episodes. Bad, how about you? What do you think your biggest critique of the show is?
I like most of it. There are a few like anime critiques, but these aren't real critiques because they're more anime critiques. Like the Spear Hero is like, I have a thing for angels. I think you mentioned that.
Yeah, that was weird.
And then it's like, she's 8, dude. She's 8.
Dude.
Like, she's young enough that if she were twice as old, she would be a little bit young.
Yeah.
And she's young enough that it wouldn't be appropriate for her to have a romantic relationship with someone of the same age as her.
Yeah,
like,
that was a little bit weird. Yeah, I think Spear Hero, he's made a couple of inappropriate comments.
I like how he gets kicked in the balls, though. That makes me happy.
He deserves it.
that's not really a real criticism. That's more of an anime criticism because it's more of an
that's fair.
anime-ism than it is an actual like story beat.
It wasn't even like, oh, you're 13 now, you're grown up. You should go find a relationship. It's like, oh, you're 8 years old. Ooh, I'm into the 8-year-olds with little angel wings.
I would say my most significant criticism is I think that the writer, maybe it's that they want to make the shield hero justified in some way. I think that they to some extent detach the shield hero from some of the conflict being explored in the story. For like when Raftalia is getting the slave crest again, the shield hero is saying like, you don't need to get this. But really his trust issues run very, very deep. And I think that's the writer wanting to like elevate that character a little bit rather than display them more genuinely. And I think that happens a little bit, like a small amount at various points throughout the show, not like strongly at any one point, but
yeah, interesting. No, very much.
I find that elevation pretty natural in life, though. We do that at times. So that's why I think about both. I agree with you, but I also know that I've seen that happen, and it's kind of one of those things where you're like, that would never happen, and then you see it, and you're like, shit, that happened in real life.
Happens all the time. Yeah. So I would say something that I thought was is interesting, and I don't know if I would say the show would be better, but I think the very beginning of the show, and this is not an uncommon thing to happen. This is not an uncommon thing to happen in individual scenes, but I feel like the show starts way too early because it starts and he is in the real world, and then he gets transported to the fantasy world, and then he goes to the court, and he gets betrayed, and et cetera, et cetera. And he goes out, and then he purchases a slave. It begins his journey. I honestly think that it would have been a better start to the show if it would have cut in. Like the show would have started when he walks into the slaver's place to buy his slave, and then we can just get the backstory from the rest of the show. Because I think the first bit was it was a whole bunch of setup, and I thought it would have been better. It would have been a little bit cleaner if they just would have the story starts when he buys with the girl, and they run into people all the time who are hearkening back to what happened in the courtroom. I think it would have been a more appropriate place to start when he buys Raftalia from the slave trader.
I wouldn't say appropriate. I liked being along for the ride. However, I would agree with you that would be a neat place to start because then we don't know what his issues are or why he's like that. And also, he's buying slaves. That's fucked. And he was dipped to the point in his own head, in his own trust issues, that he's willing to abuse a slave, which we know he's not a bad guy, but he's still buying a slave to use.
So, okay. I think part of it, I think there are two separate things.
Okay.
The first thing, the beginning of the show, when he is in Japan, is nothing to do with the story. It's purely there to be like, look, audience, Hook, you can relate with the character now. Come on.
Come here.
And then I think that's also tied to the video gaminess of the environment, where if you hit someone with a sword, you don't cut them, their HP goes down, right? Like, it's a super gamey environment. And I think the reason that's something we criticize is because the gaminess is meant to hook the audience and pull them in, because the audience knows and likes video games. So
I hate the
I think it's
so much.
I think it's kind of a hook thing. So I think there's that element which important to the story, and if the story were to get refined enough, that would get cut away because it's purely there is a hook and it's not actually meaningful to the story. Then the second thing, I think that his betrayal and his personality flip it's too abrupt. Like,
I would agree with that. It
was
fast.
very abrupt.
He was like so nice, and then he was so not, and it's like that was it. There should have been more crushing, but
so you know what there should have been? There should have been awkwardness.
Yeah,
like he's a super like straight-laced, naive, blindly trusting person, and then the day after he's betrayed, he's like, I'll fight sick monsters on you if you don't like give me a discount. And it's like he should have been awkward in being an asshole, but he was completely like cool and comfortable and collected and calm in doing it, even though he was a naive character who's never been an asshole before theoretically.
And I think maybe is that bit of the stumbling block of him making such a major character shift that makes me want to start the story, when he's buying slaves, because then he's already this angry, upset character who's going to buy slaves. Just get his backstory through what he does.
It's self-evident that the writer wanted to write a story about a bitter, resentful asshole, who's also a nice guy, but wanted him to start in a place of being a better person. And I think that they kind of tacked the start on a little bit.
Well, and I don't know if it just feels like maybe, and there's a thing that I've noticed a lot over the years is that a lot of the times people, writers will not, they just don't have in their heads that less can be more. You don't have to, in the way that I've put it is, you don't have to start the scene with the character getting in the elevator and coming up the elevator and getting out and walking into the hallway and going to an apartment and opening in the door and then meeting another character and having a fight and, then they have a fight. You can open that scene up with a book flying across the room at the one character, when they're having a fight. You don't need to lead into it. Like, people can infer that, okay, well, this character clearly came into the building.
And I love the way you're explaining it, because, like, in acting, we talk about this a lot, about how what happened before we need to know, but our audience doesn't.
The audience is smart.
But at the same time, I don't feel dumbed down by it. I feel like they walked the line. I would say they walked the line.
Yeah,
I would agree with you, but I feel like they were on that line of over-explanation and not too much. So somewhere in there.
I don't think it was bad. I feel like they could have had more grace and a little better setup. They could have.
I agree. I think the gamey stuff and the starting in Japan,
I hate the gamey stuff so much.
Could be cut out completely, because that's not really related to the story at all. So if they could reasonably skip to him being summoned without any issues, I think, rather than him walking around and finding the book and stuff. But to the extent that they didn't perfectly execute his character change, I think that's mostly an issue of like they could have done it a little bit better and had the same events happen, but portrayed it slightly more effectively.
So are you saying that there should be more of the explanation, walking the elevator, doing all of that about his character change, but not about the actual story?
So it's I don't see anything that happened in Japan or any of the elements of the world that are game-like as being meaningful to the story. I don't think they're related. I think that they're just flavor. I think they're just there to hook the audience because the audience can understand and relate to things.
As a writer, why would you do that? Why would you just hook the audience? Like, what is the purpose of that?
Because it's kind of cool, right? Because we have video games, and I like video games.
This is a really big, this is a trend.
But it doesn't have a purpose.
A lot of shows.
Well, it's not important to the art. It's not important to the exploration.
And I think so I think bad if I'm going to rephrase what you're saying. It is just as easy. It is just the same to make it. They have magical powers, and were summoned from cities across the world. It's just as easy to do that as it is to say, oh, they are from Japan and it was a video game that they all played, in their various worlds. You can frame it as magic. You don't have to frame it as like a game and here are your stats and here's your thing. It's okay. Here's your magic power and here's your mind.
But what if there is a world like that? What if there is something that happens?
Well, I don't think it's relevant.
Why?
Okay. What do you mean? What if there is a world like that?
But I mean, like, if we're exploring these things, so I don't want.
Well, I don't think that. No.
Academia.
Okay. I don't think that's what's being explored, though. I don't think they're exploring the game-like elements. They're exploring the character development. They're not exploring the game.
But why choose game? Like, what would be the purpose of
I think it's a popular trope.
It's a popular thing. It's easy to do.
It's a popular trope.
Just because it's popular doesn't mean you want to choose it for your thing.
I agree. That's why I don't like it. I wish they would.
I do like it.
You know, and I don't know. Okay. I've never seen. What is the gun? Sword Art Online. I've never seen Sword Art Online.
I would like it.
Okay, that's fair. But
you would like Death Gun though?
That's fair. I probably would.
His gun has the same name as him.
You wouldn't like it because he's the hero, like for most of the seasons, and that kind of drags on. And
yeah, that's fair. Nothing wrong with being a hero, but
okay.
Gun Gale was great.
I would like to mention. I'm going to throw this out here.
Okay.
I think that the issue that the Shield hero is facing is the same issue that the protagonist of Parasite is facing, except rather than him seeing that monstrous element of himself, he sees it in other people and recognizes he needs it in himself.
Aha. I was actually going to say, is it censorship on Netflix? Because that's what I heard was happening.
You know there's something wrong with it if even Netflix is censoring.
No Netflix.
But okay, so I think that it's in Parasite he sees that there's something monstrous about himself,
right? His
shadow, his Jungian shadow, and he's like, I need and then he has to integrate it over the course of the show. I think in Shield Hero, it's he sees the monstrous element in other people, and he realizes that because he doesn't have it, he can be hurt by other people. And a major element of the show is he is an asshole because he's trying to embody that monstrous element, but he doesn't know how to make it work and make it mesh up with the fact that he also wants to be a good person. So he ends up just being like, I'm an asshole, but then also I'll be nice sometimes, but I can't fit these two parts of my personality together.
And the reason why I asked you guys those questions was because in acting, we're supposed to take every word on the page as being purposefully written and ask ourselves why would it be written like that?
Right.
Why do I have to perform it like that? And so the answer is the performance of it, we pick. We get to choose what we get to pop. And so in the dub, those actors are choosing how to carve out those things. Would it change just based on how they said the things? Yes, it could change the entire story. And that's what I find interesting and why I ask, because maybe if they said it in a different way, we would have gotten something completely different out of it.
Sure, yeah, no, totally. And that's
not even changing the words, but there's changing also the operatives.
Yeah, right. I think there's definite truth in what you're saying. It is also true that sometimes you can exchange things, right? If the monster is a wolf versus a warg versus a bear, maybe the difference is it to some extent you can exchange things without changing the meaning that's conveyed. I would like to move on and try to talk about this.
Yes. Let's go.
That's a good idea.
We're getting close, so yeah.
So
go.
Okay, I feel like so he's got this thing, right? He sees other people have this monstrous element, and he needs that. So he needs to basically they're assholes, and he needs to be an asshole so that the assholes don't take advantage of him. And he doesn't know how to make that work with him also wanting to be a good person. And I think sort of the thing that's going on is he sees it's something like the masculine ideal in its tyrannical corrupt form, and he doesn't know what the non-corrupt form of that ideal is. And there's an element in the story that's interesting, is that the kingdom's actually a matriarchy, and it's meant to be ruled by a queen, and in the queen's absence the king has become corrupted and tyrannical. And so I think there's something where it's he needs to bring back the queen or the feminine spirit to balance out the tyranny of the masculine ideal, or something like that is what it feels like.
That's how you tap it, or something like that. Yeah, no, that's fair.
Talon.
That is one interpretation.
Yes.
Thoughts?
I'm talking to our crew in here. I feel like Wait, re-say what you said. Sorry.
Oh,
Not the
gosh.
whole thing. Just give me a brush up.
God.
Sorry, I got distracted. Just talking to our Twitch chat.
Here's basically
I
saying,
heard tyrannical.
so he's talking about the king as the tyrannical corruption of the masculine ideal. Is that?
Oh yeah.
Well, it's also the other heroes as that.
And the other heroes as an extension of that versus the queen.
And we are in a monarchy.
Well,
no, we're in
or a matriarchy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, it's a monarchy too.
It is
right?
technically a monarchy too.
But it's also the king. The king is corrupt because of the absence of the good queen. So
Right.
there's like an element I think the writer's trying to convey of like
slimy for sure.
You need to bring back the feminine spirit to check the tyrannical father. Do you not like that?
So no, because it's the father. He's just being manipulated while the queen is gone.
So,
Which, in a way of you saying that, kind of makes sense because he shouldn't be able to be manipulated necessarily.
If she were there, then he wouldn't be
getting
corrupted.
Mm-hmm.
It's also,
but also that shows that he's not a very strong human in general because he's so easily manipulated when she.
Well, it's also maybe that's appropriate because it feels like neither the protagonist nor the writer seem to have a full grasp of what the actual like heroic masculine ideal is, which is part of why the like state and moral authorities are completely corrupt, and that's the struggle of Naofumi, right? Is he doesn't know how to integrate his aggression in a way that he doesn't know how to integrate it with his compassion. He doesn't know what the masculine ideal he should be striving for is. So it seems like the solution is to bring back the feminine rather than figure out how to integrate what he's got.
And that in and of itself, the way you put it, actually, like thinking back on it, kind of reminds me of a harem because he literally is surrounded by girls.
Yeah, well, it's also because he couldn't trust someone who's mature, and I think that's really interesting. Is that if the characters had been adults when he met them, he wouldn't have trusted them enough to bring them along. He can only accept them because they're more naive than him. It's such
is that saying that females are more naive than him too?
No, they're children.
He doesn't get a male slave. He doesn't get.
Also, he it's the masculine ideal he has the issue with, right? So having females as companions makes sense because it also seems like that's like the feminine spirit is what's needed by the kingdom.
Okay.
It seems like that's what the writer's saying.
I'm just curious because like. Every freaking companion he gets is a female.
Yeah.
And he fights up very little with one male later on, and that male ends up being distrustworthy.
Yeah. Well, he couldn't trust. Well, if the masculine ideal, if you cannot see a virtuous, good masculine ideal, if the only masculine ideal you can see is the tyrannical father, then you can't trust men. You just can't. And by that, I actually also think you can't even trust a state in that way. Like,
I get that.
You can't trust authority and you can't trust men. And so that's I feel like the both the protagonist and the writer are struggling with that through the show.
Completely agree with you there.
All right, so this is quite captivating.
My God, I didn't put any thought into waifu.
I watch anime with this guy. It's exhausting sometimes.
Yeah, the first 3 episodes.
We need to talk, guys. But okay, yeah, we got to move on because we only technically have 2 minutes left, but we'll go a little bit after the time is up. To waifu. Who's the waifu?
Oh my God, waifu.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd have a waifu. I definitely am gonna say, or no, I do have waifu, 100%. I don't know if I have best girl. Waifu, the armorer guy.
Right?
The armor shop guy. He's a nice guy.
He's
got a successful business. Seems very understanding, very thoughtful.
Worst best girl, I would say, is Spear Hero.
Worst girl. Spear Hero.
Worst best girl. Okay. Yeah, like, worst best, because he's just so, like, Oh my gosh, he's ridiculous.
Most
So he's the worst. Best girl.
a
Best
little bit positive about it.
Best old lady goes to the character whose name is Old Lady, who fights monsters.
Kung Fu lady? Yeah, totally.
I liked her, yeah.
Also, given that old ladies can beat up manticores and shit,
Yeah.
like,
Why
why
do we
do
need
the towns
heroes?
evacuate? Why don't they just, like, fight
yeah.
them?
I mean, maybe it runs out. I don't know.
Yeah. We don't have enough old ladies to fight off the monsters.
Don't know about a waifu.
The
Rough
armor
Tully is
guy.
waifu if it's girl, but I
I'm
know
not
we're not
convinced
going
by
that way.
Armor Guy. Like,
I
I just
I'd
don't
say
think
Rough Tully
he's
is
got.
best girl.
He doesn't have enough development.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess it just depends on how boring you're feeling that day.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you'd settle for him.
Okay. I would like to dedicate Best Girl to
Okay.
all the unpurchased slaves.
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
I have nothing to say to
That's how I
this.
felt after
I
the
agree.
show. Oh, the slaves. It's okay. It's totally legal.
Or the demi-humans who are used as slaves. It's pretty fucked.
Yeah. Okay. So, any final thoughts? Any final thoughts on the show? Hallen, how about you? Do you have any final thoughts on
I'm
Rising
excited
of the Shield Hero?
I'm excited for the next season coming this, I think March or April is when we're supposed to get a new one.
Yeah, the thing I was referencing earlier too is that apparently there's something about the Netflix or somebody wants to censor a bunch of the stuff in Shield Hero season 2.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's in the Shield Hero season 2, but that's what I heard.
What?
They don't censor things.
Oh my god!
At least they haven't in the past.
Okay, I just saw bad in the chat. So somebody just said, just said best slave.
Best slave.
Oh, that hurts me a little bit. Okay.
I mean, Rock Valley.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I don't know what's going on with the censoring. Maybe that was another show. I thought it was Shield Hero.
It could be.
I guess
I hope it's not Made in Abyss. I'm excited for that.
If they censored
Made in Abyss,
I would be pissed.
I would be upset because I really like Made in Abyss.
I don't know if I can say how much I
Made in Abyss. I feel like the moments that you could criticize for Made in Abyss. Yeah, I don't know.
So if you had to censor something in Made in Abyss, it would have to be one of the moments that's like horrific. And if you were censoring one of the moments that's horrific, then that's like you're destroying it because it's horrific for a reason. Everything in Made in Abyss is very deliberate. I'm excited about that.
I agree. I like the word deliberate describing it. I think that is.
I like deliberate too. I think a lot of things are more deliberate than you give it a chance for.
So bad. That was the final thoughts on.
I think we've hit all the
major
notes
ones
that I wanted to mention.
If you want to really think about it, go read some Carl Jung and maybe some Solzhenitsyn.
Yes.
And
Carl Jung.
And maybe some Stella Adler and some Uta Hagen.
Viktor Frankl.
Some Viktor Frankl. Then watch it again, and
build
you'll totally get it.
Build a tiny shrine to responsibleness in your bedroom.
I do like Carl Jung.
Jung did.
Okay, so my final thoughts. Yeah, it was a good show. I enjoyed it. It was fun. Very above average. Who would you recommend it to, though?
Okay. I think you need to be a little bit more of an anime person.
That's fair.
Because it's not superbly heavy on the anime elements that push away non-anime people, but it does have some of them, and there is like I have a thing for angels, even though she's 8. So like maybe a more anime person.
Yeah.
But I honestly, I'd recommend it pretty widely. I think.
Yeah,
I wouldn't discriminate significantly in who I recommended it to.
I'd probably recommend it to somebody who has some decent experience with anime. I'd personally want something. Probably not. I probably wouldn't give it to somebody's first time thing. I'd want something that's a little more. In drawing in a little more picking up in the first part because this I think it does take a little bit to really get into the meat of the show. And I think if you've watched a lot of anime, then you'll probably just be fine with it. But if you haven't, you might kind of meander a little bit in the first bit, half and be like,
and I don't agree with that.
oh, yeah, there we go. So, disagreed. That's fine. Helen, who'd you recommend?
Do you want me?
Yeah, please.
So,
no, I don't want your opinion. No, I'm kidding. I'd love your opinion. Who would you recommend it to?
I was just going to say the reason I don't agree. I feel like I would recommend it to somebody who really likes action, who I feel like the first few episodes actually went a lot faster. I watched it as it came out, so I had to wait week to week. And so each episode had to settle in. And that was kind of cool for me because I feel like it went a lot faster in the beginning than I originally intended. But that could just be the way I watched it. That could be coming through.
Yeah.
But I also think that people who are not against anime or are not skeptical, because you have a lot of skeptics out there, then I wouldn't recommend as a first anime. But those who are open to it, I would absolutely be like, this is an action. It's awesome. It has this betrayal of trust thing going on. It's great. Check it out. Tell me what you think. I would definitely recommend this as a first anime to a lot of people, but there's also a lot of people I wouldn't.
Yeah, that's fair. Depends on who you know.
Yeah.
So real quick. No, we didn't talk about it beforehand. Why would we? What are we going to watch next time?
Oh my gosh, we could watch something next time. Oh my gosh,
there's gonna be another one of these.
Oh, there's a new one. What? Definitely a trigger warning for people, though.
Oh,
that's what Troa said.
Oh yeah, what is it?
Because of the rape. I personally went through something when I was younger, and that is definitely a trigger warning in the sense of if you have trust issues, if you have issues about rape, that can definitely cause triggers. And it did the first time I watched it. It actually triggered me. This time it didn't because I knew what to expect.
Wow, what are we talking about?
That was Shield Hero. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
No context.
Yeah, that's fair.
No context. I'm so sorry.
Does that happen later on?
No, he just in the very beginning or she says, and that was kind of a trigger for me because I was and the trust issues, so it can be a trigger. Okay. So that's what Crow was trying to say.
Noted. Got it.
Okay.
But yes. So next time, what are we going to be talking about?
We could do.
I got a handle list on my wall or something.
We could do a series of. We could do the first 3 episodes of 4 different anime.
That was an interesting idea. I don't know. I'm. What do you guys think of that? I feel like I'm skeptical that sometimes anime takes a few episodes to get going.
I think it'd be an interesting way to test the waters. We could pick similar anime and compare and contrast their opening episodes and see what thoughts we have.
Also, just throwing it out there, where did you guys watch Shield Hero?
Shady anime sites.
We watched some of it on another website.
Oh, we watched the first episode on Funimation, but Funimation as a official service is lower quality than the shady sites you don't have to pay for, which is weird.
Yeah, it's not weird.
That makes sense.
So I guess pay for the service and then watch it on shady sites. I don't know. It doesn't seem to work out very well.
Yeah, so it's available on Funimation. I think it was available on
Crunchyroll too. Yep.
So if you have those, you can watch it.
And Crunchyroll has the dub and the sub, and I recommend both. I liked both of them. They were very solid.
So one thing I did want to bring up, and I'm just going to bring it up right now, is sometime, I would say the last podcast before the end of the year, we should do a best of or something like that.
I agree with that.
I feel like that would be fun.
That sounds fun. Yes.
But that's not what we're going to do next week. What's the anime that we're doing next week?
We could do Food Wars. We could do Space Dandy. We could do East of Eden, which I haven't seen.
I would be up for East of Eden.
Maybe we should do East of Eden because technically the podcast is a reference to. Well, actually.
Well, it's a reference to the thing that East of Eden is a reference
to. Referenced as an anime. It's a kind of a double thing, anyways.
I would like to
Darn,
do
double
East of
reference.
Eden.
Double reference.
It's a meta reference.
2 points.
We're referencing the original and a reference.
Holy moly! Okay.
And yeah,
I'd be down to do that. I'm interested to see what East of Eden is all about. Whether it's I don't know. Is it follow the science fiction book?
I don't know. There's a science
Nobody
fiction
knows.
book?
Yes, there's a science fiction.
Will you drop that in the general? Because I might try and look and see if I can read that.
In 2 weeks? I don't think it's a pretty big book, but we can try.
I probably won't be able to, but I mean, I might read it later too. So
yeah, by Steinbeck, by
John Steinbeck, yeah.
Classic book. So
on an unrelated note,
is it called East of Eden?
It's called East of Eden, yeah. In the anime,
okay.
I don't know if it's. I assume it's the same thing. On a related topic.
On a tangential. On an only
route, tangentially related topic.
Okay, manga. I read. What was it?
Oh yeah.
All You Need Is Kill, and I was delighted to see that it was what the Edge of Tomorrow was based off of.
That's interesting because
that's cool.
Yeah, we should.
Although the messaging was very different because it was more about the like tragedy and loneliness and isolation of being a soldier, and that's not really what Edge of Tomorrow is about.
Yeah, no, not really.
But that was fun.
Yeah, no, totally. And that'd be something else to think about as we were thinking about maybe doing a one podcast of the month or something like that. Every other podcast, doing a manga.
I think that would be really fun to have a manga. Yeah.
Just to mix it up a bit, you know.
And it gets us reading, and mangas are fun to read anyway.
That's true.
And we could put a cap on how many. Like, okay, we're gonna read like the first 5, 10, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, and that will. I'll tell you what, that'll expand my manga collection like crazy.
Woo!
I have to read a manga once.
More manga.
Holy moly, that'll add up. But okay, I think that's gonna be it. So, what is that gonna be? The 5th of December. Oh my goodness gracious.
Goodness.
5th of December, Saturday, 5th of December, 5 p.m. We're going to be talking about East of Eden. I'll probably watch the whole. Technically, we only do the first 12 episodes. We all have very busy schedules, but we might watch the whole thing. But if you want to watch East of Eden and then come and listen to us talk about it on 5th, please do. It'll be great.
Yay!
Thanks for coming. Thanks for talking, watching, hanging out, and being in the chat, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.